Doomsday device connecting momentarily, perhaps unintentionally.
Superman punch!
The WWE Universe was left reeling in shock on Monday Night Raw as an unprecedented alliance shattered everything we thought we knew. Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker, two of Raw's most dominant forces, were ruthlessly dismantled by the unlikeliest of duos, Roman Reigns and CM Punk. What began as a night of celebration for Rollins and Breakker quickly spiraled into a nightmare. The atmosphere turned electric, charged with tension and disbelief, as the tribal chief and the voice of the voiceless united with cold precision to deliver a merciless beatdown. But the true shock came when Paul Heyman, mastermind behind the chaos, found himself utterly powerless, crawling and begging for mercy in a humiliating display. This wasn't just a fight. It was a declaration that WWE's landscape has forever changed. The calm before the storm, Seth Rollins' moment of triumph. Monday Night Raw was already electric, buzzing with the energy of a fervent crowd hungry for action. Seth Rollins stood tall in the center of the ring after a hard-fought victory, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths, a triumphant grin plastered across his face. Flanked by Bron Breakker, the monstrous enforcer who had bulldozed through the roster for months, Rollins basked in the glow of his own dominance. The architect of dominance held the microphone confidently, waving the Raw banner high above his head, fully embracing his role as the self-proclaimed visionary of the show. His voice boomed through the arena as he taunted his enemies, boasting about how he had outsmarted everyone, how no one could touch him, and how Raw belonged to him and his faction. Bron Breakker stood like an immovable mountain beside Rollins, his rippling muscles tense, eyes scanning the crowd with silent menace. Together, they radiated unbreakable confidence, a human fortress of power and control. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as Rollins shouted his challenge to the world. Then, without warning, the arena lights abruptly cut out. Darkness descends. The arrival of Roman Reigns and CM Punk. The roar of the crowd faded instantly into a confused murmur. The commentators fell silent, their voices lost in the blackout that cloaked the entire arena in shadow. The deafening quiet was broken only by the faint hum of anxious whispers and shifting feet. Then, piercing the darkness, a single spotlight shone down from the rafters onto the entrance ramp. Two dark silhouettes emerged, slowly stepping forward from the shadows. The fans leaned forward in their seats, straining to identify the figures. One of them shifted slightly, revealing the unmistakable tribal tattoo etched across his arm, a symbol instantly recognized by every wrestling fan. The crowd gasped in recognition. The other figure stood rigid, his arms wrapped in tape and sleeves, his body language exuding cold, calculated menace. As the lights flickered back on, the arena erupted in stunned silence, followed by a thunderous roar of disbelief. Standing side by side at the top of the ramp were Roman Reigns and CM Punk, two icons of the wrestling world with a history as complicated as it was bitter. The March of Vengeance, a calculated and menacing advance. Reigns and Punk didn't rush the ring in a flurry. Instead, they walked with deliberate, measured steps, each footfall echoing like a death knell. Their faces were cold, their expressions void of emotion, eyes blazing with a fury born from years of betrayal and manipulation. The atmosphere thickened with tension, the kind that made the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. This wasn't just a challenge. This was a war declaration. Every step closer was a statement. Payback was coming, and it would be unforgiving. Rollins' confident smirk began to fade under the weight of the menacing approach. Bron Breakker, sensing the shift in energy, stepped forward, muscles tensing like a coiled beast ready to pounce. but even he looked uncertain, his normally unshakable aura shaken by the palpable threat. The arena crackled with anticipation, the air electric with the promise of chaos. The mastermind's downfall. Paul Heyman's web unravels. But this wasn't just about pride or championship gold. No, the stakes were far higher. This brutal reckoning was aimed squarely at exposing the man behind the curtain, the mastermind who had manipulated the careers and fates of everyone involved. Paul Heyman. For months, Heyman had whispered in the ears of wrestlers, subtly steering Bron Breakker's path of destruction, playing the puppet master behind Rollins's faction. He had spun tales of loyalty to WWE's future, even claiming he had outwitted Roman Reigns himself. He suggested that CM Punk's shocking return was part of some grand orchestrated plan under his control. But Heyman had gravely underestimated his opponents. Roman Reigns, the head of the table, the longest reigning champion of this era, and CM Punk, the voice of the voiceless, master of mind games and grudges, had been watching, waiting, and planning in silence. Their shared history of betrayal fueled a dangerous bond, one that had been secretly forged away from the public eye, the cruel justice. A brutal and public humiliation. As the chaos erupted, the most chilling moment came when Paul Heyman, sensing the tide turning, attempted to escape. His eyes darted nervously as he crept up the ramp, desperate to flee backstage unnoticed. But Reigns and Punk's senses were razor-sharp. In a stunning display of unity, they turned simultaneously and locked eyes on Heyman. Without hesitation, they cornered him, two predators closing in on their prey. Grabbing the collar of Heyman's expensive suit, Punk hissed into his ear, "You created this monster." Roman's cold nod echoed the sentiment without a word. And then, in a brutal display of retribution, they hurled Heyman into the unforgiving steel steps. The cameras zoomed in on Heyman as he lay on the cold floor, trembling, eyes wide with terror and disbelief. For the first time in years, the man who had manipulated the very fabric of WWE was exposed, alone, powerless, and utterly broken. The spear that shattered invincibility. Bron Breakker's downfall. The assault began with the thunderous impact of Roman Reigns' spear. Bron Breakker, once considered an unstoppable juggernaut, never stood a chance. Reigns exploded off the ropes with lethal precision, driving Breakker through the barricade in a collision that shook the entire arena. The crowd erupted into a mix of shock and awe as Breakker's massive frame crumpled among shattered debris and twisted steel. Reigns stood tall above the wreckage, chest heaving, eyes burning with rage. His voice cut through the chaos as he declared, "This is for Mania." The power and symbolism behind those words hung heavy in the air. Revenge for past betrayals, a message to all challengers, and a new order about to rise. The fall of the puppet master. Paul Heyman's final humiliation. And just when the carnage seemed complete, Paul Heyman tried one last desperate bid for freedom. He slinked up the ramp, hoping to vanish backstage unnoticed. But Roman and Punk were quicker. Turning as one, they gave chase. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Heyman was grabbed once again by the collar, dragged back toward the ring as he pleaded for mercy. Punk hissed venomously, "You created this monster." Roman nodded grimly, and in front of thousands of stunned fans, they slammed Heyman into the unforgiving steel steps. The camera lingered on Heyman's pale, trembling face, capturing the man once known as the mastermind in his most vulnerable and exposed state. Behind the scenes, secret alliances and future threats. Backstage sources have since confirmed what fans have begun to whisper. Roman Reigns and CM Punk have been holding secret meetings for weeks, plotting their next move against Paul Heyman and anyone who stands in their way. While no one knows the full extent of this alliance or what the future holds, one thing is clear: it is far from a temporary truce. This partnership is rooted in shared hatred, betrayal, and an insatiable thirst for vengeance. Adding to the intrigue, Sami Zayn was spotted watching the chaos unfold from a backstage monitor, a knowing smile creeping across his face. Is he part of this new alliance? Or is he preparing his own play on this freshly shaken WWE chessboard? The aftermath: a new era begins on Raw. The fallout from this historic night is already reshaping WWE. Seth Rollins' empire is crumbling, Braun Breaker's aura of invincibility shattered. Paul Heyman, the architect of countless wrestling factions and manipulations, has been publicly humiliated and reduced to a broken figure. The locker room is on high alert. When Roman Reigns and CM Punk join forces, there are no rules, no limits, and no one is safe. Tonight was more than just a beatdown. It was a declaration of war. The battlefield is raw. The stakes have never been higher. And the story? It is far from over. It may have only just begun. Stay tuned, because whatever Roman and Punk have planned next will send shock waves through the WWE landscape for months to come.